Good morning.
On this day. Does anyone remember what it was like when you were learning to walk? Does anyone remember that? Probably not. You're probably too young to remember that. Do you think you might have fell down a couple times when you started to walk? I know I did. And don't feel bad about falling down, because once you fell down, someone would pick you up with your pair of shoes. Which is why parents are with us. That's why they help us. They are called to help us as we start our journey on earth of starting to walk. But can you imagine if they done just the opposite? When you were trying to get up to walk, they would just keep pushing you down. You would probably never be able to walk because they kept pushing you down. Now, can you imagine doing that? Like someone pushing you down? But in today's story, in the gospel, Jesus is telling his disciples to pay attention to God. And that's really important. And maybe paying attention to God is as difficult as trying to walk. And by no means do the disciples do anything to others or themselves that makes paying attention to God even harder to do. Jesus calls those things that people do to make learning of God so important. And we are called to learn about God in many different ways, in our thought, word, and deed. Basically what Jesus is saying in today's story, if you see someone helping someone else, pay attention to God and don't try to stop them from trying to walk with God. If you know someone is learning, pay attention to that and you'll learn something about God. Jesus is really good at inviting people to learn from him about how to pay attention to God. He knew that things they could do just by paying attention to God and listen to what God was saying. So just like your parents would push you down when you were trying to learn to walk, Jesus taught the disciples not to make it harder for others to pay attention to God. And the same is true for us. We are not meant to argue or force people into paying attention to God in the way we think they should do. We think, well, maybe they should pay attention to God like I do. But it's not. We invite God in. We invite Jesus into others and learn about how to learn from him and Holy Apostles. When we invite others to join us in paying attention to God, then we're doing just like Jesus said, instructing his disciples about how to learn about God. And that's the good news for us today, is to pay attention to God and invite him into our life. So I'd like to have a closing prayer. And if you repeat after me what I say, I would appreciate it. Dear God,
Thank
you for Jesus.
Thank you for Jesus,
Who invites us to learn from him.
who invites us to learn from him
How to pay attention to you.
how to pay attention to you.
Help us to accept this invitation.
Help us to accept his invitation
And share it with others.
and share it with others.
Thank you and amen.
Thank you and amen.